What's up guys, Kyle here again, and today it's time to finally check out the Prometheus, the all-new, all-tube German monstrosity from Lichtlärm. Let's do it. Alright guys, hope you're doing great out there today. If this is your first time here at my channel, my name is Kyle. What I do is I take all sorts of awesome high gain related guitar equipment, I record it with a simple SM57 setup, and I give you the unprocessed audio on your end. So if you're into East End with thrash riffs, dropsy hardcore riffs, and dudes that can't grow a full beard, you're in the right place. Consider hitting the like button and subscribing on the way out so you don't miss any more of my stuff. Thanks! Alright guys, so this is a day that I have been waiting for quite some time, honestly. And that is because we get to check out the first tube amp from the homie Daniel over at Lichtlärm Audio in Germany. I'm gonna pronounce it differently every time. If you guys have been around the channel for a minute, you know that I love everything that Daniel has put out. But if you haven't been around the channel for a while, Lichtlärm Audio makes a ton of really awesome, unique, great looking, great sounding pedals. I honestly put him at the very top of the heap as far as boutique pedal builders go. Like literally everything I've tried from the man, he just cannot miss. And if you're looking for some awesome tone sculpting tools, I highly recommend checking out Lichtlärm's stuff. But Daniel was strictly in the pedal world for quite a while. So when he hit me up and told me that he was coming out with a brand new all-tube amplifier that was gonna have some features that you wouldn't see on other amplifiers in the class, I already knew that it was something that I was gonna be excited for, and I already knew that it was gonna do some things differently than a lot of the other amps on the market, because that's kind of what Daniel's pedals do. And I knew that his amp would kind of be the same deal, and after playing through it for the past couple of days, can absolutely confirm that. Now, as I mentioned, Daniel and Lichtlärm, German company. This amp honestly kind of sounds German. If you've ever played an Engel or a Dietzel before, or even something like a Bogner Überschall, I have noticed that all three of those amps have a lot of compression, they have a lot of gain, and they're just a little bit darker in character, and this one is no exception, but it still definitely has its own voicing, even though it does share similarities with some of those amplifiers. So, editing Kyle here. Two quick things that I want to slip in, guys. That's what she said. Number one, I actually made a capture pack for the Neural Quad Cortex of the Prometheus amplifier. There are 15 different captures with all sorts of different EQ settings, a couple of different boosts worked in, and there are a lot of awesome tones in this Quad Cortex capture pack. So if you want to pick that up, 15 captures for 15 bucks. And you guys can pick that up from my Patreon site, which I will link down below in the description of this video. And second, my friend, the other John Brown, who has an awesome video on this amplifier, has also made some impulse responses for you guys to download of the LCFR speaker that we're gonna check out in this video, and they are absolutely free, so I will link to his video where you can download those as well. Make sure you hit the man's like button and subscribe to him as well for some awesome content. That's it, bye! Before I get too long-winded, I do want to let you know this is a sponsored video. Daniel is paying me to share this amplifier with you guys here on the channel. So feel free to take everything I have to say with a massive grain of salt. You're more than fair to do so, but just know you're gonna get my honest thoughts and opinions as you always do. keep that in mind. As much as I'm gushing over Lichtlerum and the amplifier at the moment and everything Daniel does and how his farts smell in the morning and all that stuff, I do have some small critiques about the amp, and I will share those with you guys. But overall, I think it's an awesome amplifier, and I'm just super happy to have the job that I have so I can share it with you guys. So let's jump into the actual features of this amplifier. But the cool thing about these not being mass produced, you'll have to hit up Daniel in order to order one of these, is he basically offers any sort of power tube complement that you could imagine. You can do matched quads of cool stuff like KT88s. You can do mixed quads of KT88, 6L6, KT88, EL34, which is actually what's in this. Pretty much anything that you can dream up, it's on Daniel's list of what he is able to put in this amplifier. The Prometheus features 2 channels. We've got a clean channel, which I don't even know why Daniel bothered with that loser shit. And then we have a lead channel where the big boys hang out. And there's also a vintage and modern switch on here. The vintage will give you a lot less gain. We're gonna explore both of those. We've got a 3-way bite switch here, which makes a massive difference in the overall top end response and the gain response of the amplifier. There's also a switch over here for brilliant and warm, but that only applies to the top channel, so we won't be messing with that. Here for the power section of the amplifier, we've got both a depth and a presence. We've got a master volume, but right here, we've also got a gate control. If you're familiar with Lichtlerum at all, you probably know that Daniel has one of the best 4-cable gates on the market, the key in the gate. And he has actually managed to work that circuit into this amplifier, and it comes between the preamp and the power amp. So right now the amp is on and it is loud and you guys don't hear anything, and that's because we've got the gate switched on. That's gonna cut all of your preamp hiss and stuff when you're playing the amp when you're not actually playing. One of the really cool things and unique things about this amplifier is there's a defeat switch. And what that does is that literally defeats the preamp completely. So it takes your signal from the front of the amp and puts it directly into the power amp. So if you want to use this as a preamp pedal platform, you want to throw a cool preamp pedal in front of it, like say the Friedman BEOD Deluxe or one of Daniel's many preamps. He's got a few different preamps and distortions that would actually be awesome with this thing. All you do is hit that defeat switch and you can put it right into the front of the amplifier. You don't have to run it into the effects return like on pretty much every other amp on the market. I think that that's super cool. And this amp also has programmable MIDI functionality, so you could even program it to basically bypass the preamp on certain settings, and then you could use a external preamp pedal in order to get a different tone, a completely different tone out of this if you wanted to, and have that all foot switchable, controllable via a MIDI controller. So that's not something you're gonna find on any other amplifier, and I think that that's a really cool function. There is also a basic foot switch that you can use with the Prometheus, but you're really gonna get everything out of that MIDI functionality. It also has external bias points. It's got a switchable loop, and it also has a line out with a controllable level. So if you want to send that preamp out to another power amp and extend yourself or the amplifier, you choose, you can do that. So yeah, those are all of the features off the top of my head. Daniel is an extremely detail-oriented person, and there's probably more stuff that I forgot, but I think that those are really the key features. So yeah, let's dive into some more of the tones that this amplifier has to offer. For that intro clip, I was using my Balaguer Typhon with the Seymour Duncan distortion in the bridge. We were actually boosting the amplifier with the Lichtlerum King in Yellow, which a lot of you know has become one of my favorite overdrives for the flexibility. We are going into a Mesa traditional 4x12 cab, 1999 with the original V30s in it. We have an SM57 on those V30s direct where the dust cap meets the cone, and there will be no post-processing on any of the audio that you hear. One point that I do want to make really quick about the amp though is this was designed around a completely different speaker. Daniel actually collaborated with Fane Speakers and designed an entirely new speaker for the Prometheus called the LCFR 150. It's a 150 watt speaker, and it has a totally different voicing than the V30. But because I do all of my amp demos on the same cab with the same guitar, in order for you to be able to basically compare different amps through the completely same setup with nothing being changed, that is how I'm gonna do this demo. But I'll have a video coming out very soon. I actually do have those speakers and the actual cab that was supposed to be paired with this amplifier. Lichtlerum also has a matching 412 cab. So I'm already talking way too much. Let's revisit that intro tone. So yeah, with the boost out front, man, this thing is just really tight, really punchy, lots of compression. It's a very smooth amp overall. You definitely have to push the presence and the treble a little bit to get some top end grind out of it. What the hell are my dogs barking about? Anyway, so let's kick the boost off. Here is the amp with the guitar straight in. So as you can see, it is definitely compressed, it's definitely smooth on top, but one thing that we can do to change that very easily would be to play around with this bite switch. We had it in the far right position, but here it is in the middle. As you can see, that is much, much smoother. It is fatter. Over here, it's the most aggressive in the far left. And as you guys can tell, the bite switch actually does affect the amount of gain that the amp is putting out, or the saturation. One thing I forgot to touch on the intro of the video, and it's kind of an important part about this amplifier, is it has a cut control, which basically tightens up the amp and adds some aggressive mid frequencies as you dial it up. So dialing it down, it's looser. As you dial it up, it starts to get really, really tight, really punchy, and a lot more aggressive in those upper frequencies. So let's dial it up to half. This is one of those few amplifiers where I would be totally happy playing this thing without a boost. We can actually up that gain a little bit too, because this thing hasn't a ton of gain on tap. So as you can see, super tight, super clanky. The way that I palm mute on this amp, I actually do have to change my play style just a little bit because it is so tight. When dialing that cut control up, I usually have my hand a little bit further forward in order to really control those low frequencies, but this amp, one of my critiques with it is that it doesn't quite have as much low end as I would personally like. I actually currently have the depth and the bass both maxed out, and when you dial that cut control up, it really tightens up that bass and takes away some of those frequencies. So it helps keep everything very tight and controlled, but I also would prefer to have a little bit more low end on hand if it were just me. But keep in mind, the cabinet and the speaker that were designed to go along with this amp actually have quite a bit more low end than the V30 through the Mesa cabinet. So again, we will be sure to check that out in an upcoming video. Actually, no, you know what? We're gonna check it out at the end of this video. I don't wanna leave you guys hanging like that. So that is with the Bright all the way over here, and that is with the gain around noon. We can actually dial it up and get even more gain out of it. So yeah, dude, this amp does not need a boost whatsoever to get very saturated, very tight, very, very easy to play amplifier. And unlike some other amps that are like really compressed right out of the box that don't require a boost, I actually really like how this thing plays straight in. So we've had both the mid and the treble up at noon for all the tones you guys have heard so far. And I've found you don't really have to stray too much from noon in order to get the amp to sound good, but we can get into the extreme frequencies. Let's try scooping this thing out a little bit and getting like a really nasty mid scoop. Okay, so dialing the mids back actually brings that low end forward quite a bit, because now the low end is pretty big and boomy without an overdrive out front, but I still don't really feel like it needs an overdrive. We could probably just pump up that cut just a little bit, get a little bit more presence to add some top end sizzle. Man, the punchiness of that low end is awesome. Another thing that I love about this amp is the presence. On a lot of really modern voiced amplifiers, the presence is placed lower than it would be on, you know, something like, say, a 5150. Here, it is definitely up in that sizzly range. So we're taking a quick break from full-on belligerence. We're actually going to explore the vintage voicing on this lead channel real quick. All I did on the amp was flip from modern to vintage. I didn't touch anything else. All right, so as you can hear, way less gain. It definitely opens the amp up a little bit, but I think we need to pull back this cut control because it's kind of adding some of those modern, like clanky frequencies. And then let's pull back the bass and the depth a little bit, as well as the presence, balance it out. It can absolutely cop some vintage tones. I'm actually pretty surprised by that. Really, honestly, not bad at all. Let's see if we can even get it a little bit lower gain. Let's actually push the gain up though. Let's use our volume control, see how it responds. Oh, dude, totally. Really responsive to the volume control on the pickup, actually. For as much compression as it has in the modern mode, like it really opens up and is responsive to, you know, different output levels from your pickup or from your pedals on the vintage voicing. So really cool. Let's, just for fun, let's max that gain out. All right, so it does that stuff awesome, man. Super impressive, the flexibility and the gain channel of this amplifier. I'm really impressed. But enough of that weak stuff. Let's get back into the belligerents. Let's grab a guitar with active pickups and get back into the modern channel. All right, guys, Schecter Hellraiser Solo 6 Extreme with the EMG 81 in the bridge. We are still going directly into the amplifier, and it sounds like this. All right, so voicing wise, I actually really like how this sounds. Again, straight into the amp, no overdrive. Usually I'm not a huge fan of EMGs, but the 81 in the bridge of this guitar actually sounds really good on the amp. Let's try the same riff, but with Fishman Fluence Modern Ceramics on the active setting. All right, so overall, the amp, for being as compressed as it is, seems to do pretty well with the active pickups. Personally prefer the voicing of the EMGs. I liked the low end better on the Fishman Fluence Modern Ceramic. One thing I do worry about though is it gonna be able to take a boost? So I've found that the amp plays best with boosts with the bite switch in the middle because that is where it is the least bright and the least compressed. So here it is with no boost. Here it is with the Electric Eye Mud Killer kicked in. So yeah, pretty squashed with both a boost and active pickups going into the front of it. Again, I really don't feel like it's necessary on this amplifier, so keep that in mind. But me personally, I at least like having the option of being able to run a boost to kind of augment the sound to my liking. But yeah, let's get away from actives and let's check out a guitar in Drop C. All right guys, Gibson Les Paul Studio Faded with the Duncan Jupiter pickup set in this guitar. I can already tell you these pickups, because of the upper mid aggressiveness and the clarity of them, really bond well with this amp for lower tunings. It's probably my favorite tone that I've gotten out of it. All right, so that is really, really nasty on its own, going directly into the front of the amp. But because these pickups don't saturate the same way as a lot of other pickups I've noticed, they stay really, really clean. Let's actually try this with an overdrive. Let's see if we can get a nasty boosted tone for Drop C. Okay, so we are using the Lichtlerm King in Yellow overdrive in front. Here's it sounds. The tone itself I thought was nasty, really punchy low end, really open in the mid frequencies. It sounds really good. And honestly, I'm really digging a lot of the sounds that we're getting out of this thing. This is a lot of fun, but I promised you I would grab the other cabinet. So let's do that real quick. All right guys, so I now have the Prometheus hooked up to its matching cabinet with those LCFR Fane speakers. It is quite clear that this amp was designed around these speakers, because as soon as I plugged it in and started dialing, I was just like, okay, pretty much everything I complained about is fixed by these speakers. So here's a quick little riff. Way punchier. The top end has been leveled out a little bit. It fills in the mids a little bit. That was with the boost on. And here I have a tone dialed in with no boost, and you guys can still see how tight, how percussive this thing sounds. One of the things that Daniel designed these speakers for is basically to stay together under loud volumes and really low tunings. Low tunings produce a lot of bass, and most like vintage style speakers, they don't really stay together when you tune that low and have that much bass. So we're gonna test that real quick. All right, guys, so I have my Balaguer Espada baritone here. This is in drop A. We are going straight into the amplifier. I've dialed it in for a good, tight, but saturated lower tune tone. I almost said lower gain tone. I don't even know what I'm saying at this point. Here we go. All right, guys, that is gonna do it for me today on the Lichtlerm Prometheus. What do you guys think about this amplifier? Is this something that you're excited about on your end? Did you even know it existed before this video? There seems to be quite a bit of hype going around in a lot of the high gain amp Facebook groups and stuff. So I'm actually curious to see how many people in my audience know of the existence of this amp. But yeah, what did you think about the tones that I was able to get out of it? What do you think about the features? What do you think about the aesthetics? Really curious to hear from you guys and your thoughts on this amplifier. If you guys want to purchase this amp or get into the nitty-gritty details, find out all about it, I will put a link down below in the description of this video that will take you to Lichtlerm's site. And of course, you can contact Daniel. He is incredibly responsive and he's a great guy to work with. At the time of filming this video, depending on what tube complement you get in the amplifier, it's somewhere around the $3,000 price mark. But yeah, lots of fun for me. This amp, especially the amp and cab combo, a little bit more modern than I would typically go for, but I found myself really liking the sound of it, especially as we tune lower. I just felt like that's where this amp is just meant to be. It's meant to live in those lower tunings, and that's what it was designed for. I've been talking a whole lot over the last hour shooting this video, so thanks again to Daniel for sending this over. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, hit the like button, subscribe. If you're not already subscribed, I'm gonna get out of here. Thanks so much for watching. Kyle here again. We'll see you next time. Bye.
You know what this wall is missing? Another amp. There we go.